Mechanisms of autonomic arousal were designed not to protect us from tigers and predators. You've heard that before. It was designed to mobilize us anytime we need to pursue something, and that could be water or food. One way I can create agitation is simply by making someone or myself very thirsty. I'm going to be laser focused on trying to get water. Now, conditions of fasting, a lot of people these days are excited about intermittent fasting. There's some studies pro, there's some studies against. We have experts at Stanford who work on these issues as well as others. When we are in a fasted state, we tend to have more alertness than we are when we're fed. And that's why the parasympathetic nervous system is also called the rest and digest system. Now, it doesn't matter what you eat. If your gut is full of food, if I eat 8 ribeye steaks, let's say, or 8 pounds of broccoli and my gut is fully distended, a lot of blood is going to be diverted there and away from the other tissues of the body, including my brain, and I'm going to be sleepy regardless of what I eat. So it's volume of food, there's a blood sugar relationship, and then there's timing of food intake. I will say this, regular meal timing, even if you're intermittent fasting, so for instance, if you're a lunch and dinner person or a breakfast dinner person or a breakfast, lunch and dinner, but whatever it is, those mechanisms that govern our alertness are tied to our food intake. Light is the most powerful Zeitgeber, as we call it, timekeeper, but the timing of food intake, exercise, and light combine to tell our autonomic nervous system when we should be awake and alert. A simple way to do this is if you have trouble waking up early, light in your eyes early during the day, exercise early in the day, and believe it or not, food intake early in the day will, in a short period of time, shift your autonomic nervous system towards early wake-up time, whether or not it's pleasant to do those things that time of day or not. Likewise, doing those later in the day will shift you towards later. But basically, when blood sugar is low, we tend to secrete molecules in our brain and bloodstream that promote agitation, wakefulness, and the pursuit of food, but that can be diverted, that alertness and attention can be diverted to cognitive things. Some people work better fasted. Some people can't work at all when they're not fed. So it's highly individual, but there's a kind of a core logic, which is the hungrier you are, the more alert you're going to be and able to focus. But at some point, that focus will become all about food. Melatonin is a naturally secreted hormone from the pineal. It's secreted in darkness. It's inhibited by light. I always say this, I'm not a medical doctor, so I don't prescribe anything, including supplements. I'm a professor, so I profess all sorts of things. And I'm comfortable talking about what I do in my knowledge of the field and a resource that I think will be useful to people. Many people take melatonin. Melatonin has 2 primary roles. One is to promote sleepiness in people of all ages. In children, melatonin is chronically high. It's not regulated by light in the same way. And melatonin's, one of its major roles in development is to inhibit the onset of puberty. So there's a question out there and a lot of good reviews and a lot of debate as to whether or not supplementing melatonin for too often or too long, especially in children, is a good or bad idea. Now, their melatonin is already high, but if you're taking it as an adult, you're taking truly supraphysiological levels. When you take that 3 milligram tablet of melatonin, it is astronomically high. Jamie Zeitzer has more to say about this than I do and is more of an expert on this. There are supplements. Before we talk about anything related to food or supplements, my bias and my lab's focus is always to think about behavioral tools, the do's and don'ts of behavior, then to think about things like nutrition, timing, and content, then to think about supplementation, then prescription drugs, and then there's this whole new world opening a brain-machine interface, binaural beats and and things you put apparati that people wear and plug in and these kinds of things. So there are tools that would allow one to access sleep more readily, which generally center around long exhale breathing for reasons that now should be obvious and clear to you. There's a practice that my lab has been studying, which is in the outside world, outside the laboratory, is called Yoga Nidra, N-I-D-R-A. You can find scripts for those online. There are hypnosis scripts for improved sleep at Reverie from David's lab.
Using a technique called self-hypnosis, we can teach people how to powerfully use their brains to control the way their bodies feel and function.
That almost all are anchored around long exhale breathing. The idea is to turn off the forebrain, to turn off the analysis of duration, path, and outcome. How long are things going to last? What's going to happen? And what path should I take to get a particular outcome? You need to shut off thinking. That's hard to turn off thinking using thinking. It doesn't really work. So again, it's using breathing. There are supplements that now people are excited about. I'm not suggesting these, that are different than melatonin, that are mainly of the magnesium threonate and theanine category that promote GABA release. Threonate because the transporters for magnesium threonate are a little bit different than the others. I highly recommend, everyone should talk to their doctor before considering or taking anything, especially with kids. contraindications are a real thing. But there's a website called examine.com. I have no relationship to them. That is a not-for-profit website that lists out all supplements and links to PubMed articles and what's called the human effect matrix, where it describes the summary takeaway of all the studies done. For instance, magnesium threonate, it'll tell you about its effect on sleepiness. It'll also tell you about its effect on cardiovascular function. So before you take anything, you should do diligence and go there and talk to your physician. But I'd be lying if I said there aren't compounds available, including prescription drugs, that can help enhance the transition to sleep and depth of sleep. So be smart about it, and behavioral tools are, at least for many people, sufficient